As you'll know from our coverage this week, China has invited Burkina Faso's president to attend the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation in Beijing later this year. The invitation was made while the two countries' foreign ministers met in Beijing. After committing to the One China principle, Burkina Faso says it wants to work more with China. The West African country is facing several challenges, both security and political. CGTN's Robert Nagila takes a look at its recent history.
In 2015, a year after Blaise Compaoré was deposed from power by a popular uprising, acting President Michel Kavondo survives a coup attempt by allies of Compaoré in the Presidential Guard. Later that year in November, former Prime Minister Roch-Marc Christian Compaoré wins the presidential election, comfortably beating former Economy and Finance Minister Zéphrine Diabré. In January of 2016, Islamist militants killed 29 people, mostly foreigners, during an attack at a hotel and cafe in the capital, Ouagadougou. In a daring attack in December 2016, Islamist militants waving black flags storm a military base near the border with Mali and kill 11 soldiers. A few months later, in February 2017, the Sahel G5 states, that is Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania and Niger, set up a joint counter-terror force to battle militants. In August, 18 people are killed in a terror attack on a Turkish restaurant in the capital Ouagadougou. In March 2018, the French embassy comes under attack. 16 people are killed, including 8 gunmen. Back to you.
Right, to discuss this further, we are now joined by Dr. Francis Onditi. He is the head of department at the School of International Relations and Diplomacy at the Riara University here in Kenya. Doctor, to begin with, what can you tell us about the history of the Burkina Faso and China relations, and what exactly has changed?
Now, I think it's a big congratulations to the Republic of China, because for the last several years, since 1961 when Burkina Faso got independence, they have never had a diplomatic relation. You remember, it's only Taiwan that the country, Burkina Faso, has been in diplomatic relation. It got down at one point, but in 1994, they revived the relation. So it's a great, I think it's an achievement to the Africa-China cooperation framework to have actually lured Burkina Faso into this relationship. But I think it's also a very important move for the people of China, because you'll remember that more than 600 immigrants from China live in Burkina Faso. They've been there for many years without a diplomatic tie. So for both countries, I think it's a win-win kind of game, which for me, it leads into deepening the Sino-Africa cooperation for trade and other infrastructure development that the country has been doing across Africa.
Right, and what are the likely benefits for the two nations, especially focusing on industry?
Looking at the strength of China, for example, China for the last, let's say, a decade, they have done quite well in Africa. We've got infrastructure, investment in infrastructure. We've got them doing quite a lot of mining. We've got them also transferring expatriates. I'm looking at Burkina Faso. I mean, Burkina Faso is one of the countries that are poor in Africa. Infrastructure is dilapidated. Now, those are opportunities for the two countries to deepen the cooperation, and perhaps they can benefit out of this. The entrepreneurship, which is one of the strengths of the people, the 600 immigrants from China living in Burkina Faso, I think this cooperation can also be a very good opportunity for them to excel, and at the same time building the infrastructure for Burkina Faso to spur the economic development and also livelihood for the people of Burkina Faso.
Right, and finally, Dr. Onditi, what are some of the lessons maybe that other African nations can take from this?
Now, Mutua, looking at the approach that China is using on this cooperation, it's what we call the bottom-up approach, because there have been no relation between the two countries, but they've been having quite a good friendship. But now that they've gotten into official diplomatic relation, it means that it's a plus. It's a lesson in the sense that beginning from very small aspect of entrepreneurship, people exchanging ideas, cultural exchange, I think it can spur into a full official diplomatic relation. And I think African countries, particularly those from West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, who are already having relation with China, they can take advantage of that for expatriate, for infrastructure development, and maybe the Pan-African transport idea or dream can actually come true. Because those are the strength. I mean, infrastructure is actually the strength of China in Africa.
All right,
Yeah.
Dr. Onditi, thank you very much for your insights. Dr. Francis Onditi speaking to us live here in our studios in Nairobi. He's an international relations expert.